Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the Entrepreneur Spotlight Show, and we have a special guest on the show today. You know, our team came across what Mr. Cliff Nonnenmacher is doing in the franchise space, and we had to get on the phone with him immediately, bring him on the show, because when it comes to franchising, of course, when you think about franchising, you really need an expert on your side, because this is a real life-changing decision to start your own business. And Cliff has a brand new book coming out as well, so we're very delighted to have him on the show before the book gets released. It's going to be a bestseller. We've had a chance to take a look at the early sort of PDF file of it, and it looks really amazing. We're going to ask him some questions about that as well. But Cliff, we're honored to have you on the show today. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Spotlight Show.
Thank you, Andy. I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. It's great to have you. I mean, listen, you're doing such great work. So many people reach out to you. You've got a podcast. People are coming on the show. People are reaching out to you. Hey, what about franchising? We have so many questions, so I'm not going to take all the air up in the room. Before we get started, let's pull the lens back just a little bit to 30,000 feet. Tell us about what you're doing at Franocity, and then we're going to go.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I co-founded Franocity with my business partner, Justin Guevara. He's also the co-author of the book, Beyond the Brand. We also host a podcast called Pursuit of Profit. We only interview founders of franchise concepts. So it's a very niche show, but our clients, benefit from it greatly because it zeroes in on everything that they're trying to learn. So we created Franocity so we started, just to kind of level set, we started buying failure. So that's how we started. We started by buying failing businesses with solid fundamentals, turning them around very, very quickly, and then selling them. And we did this over and over and over again. And it was evidence that, the franchise model works. It was the owner-operator error that was causing the business to fail. So over years of doing that, we decided, after sitting across the closing table from countless people who are selling us their business for pennies on the dollar, we said we really need to help people navigate this process, and they're lacking discipline. They're lacking a due diligence structure. They're lacking the formation of investment objectives. Why are you here? Is this a side gig? Are you quitting your job? Are you trying to create wealth? Are you trying to create a legacy? Are you trying to secure a spouse's future? What are you trying to do? What's the objective? And folks' answers were just strange. Well, our neighbor owns 5 supercuts. We thought that would be a good idea. It's like that doesn't align. And that's really what we do. We just bring discipline to the table and a strict adherence to due diligence and keeping our investors out of trouble and buying the brand that aligns best with them, their risk tolerance, their time horizon, their investment amount, and their income needs. There's a lot to unpack in what we do. I'm trying to give you an idea of what are you actually saying to these people and why would they need you? And as you could tell, we could continue for another hour on just being a disciplined investor and looking for asymmetrical investments.
Yeah, we might just do that. I have some extra time available that I've kind of whittled out, because I know this is such an important discussion point. Now let's talk about it from the person that's looking to get into a franchise, because that's always interesting. We get a lot of questions about that. Sometimes we get questions from, older people. Hey, I'm in my second or third career. I want to get into a franchise. What should I do? And, we're not franchise experts here. We're business experts, but you're the franchise expert. So let's talk about it. Who are the people that reach out to you, Cliff, and they say, hey, I'm interested in a franchise? What does that first conversation sound like so that you can give them the great advice that you give? And by the way, you give it absolutely free, which is remarkable.
That's correct. Thank you for mentioning that. The service is free. Nobody believes that because the word is abused. And I understand that people are skeptical of the word free. The service is free. We're paid. We're just not paid by the buyer. We're compensated much like a realtor or a headhunter. We're paid by the seller or the opposing party. So we're not paid by the buyer. So yes, we're free. And just think of us as like a realtor. Instead of showing you homes, we'll show you businesses. Who's coming to us? It varies, right? From your 20-somethings all the way up to your 60-somethings who didn't, let's say, plan for retirement properly and don't have that cash flow coming in, don't have a pension, but also don't want to grind it out 50 hours a week in corporate America. They don't want to travel anymore, meaning they don't want to work on an airplane. And, well, there's a lot of people that are on the road, half the year. So it varies. But if you said, well, like, where's the sweet spot? The sweet spot's going to be 40s and 50s, right? That's your window of life where you have runway if a mistake is made, where you can recover, but you also have the liquidity and the business acumen to make the decision to leave corporate America to then buy your business. Most of the people that are coming to us are displaced executives, and they're coming to us from an unhappy place. And I put emphasis on that because you can only come from, one of two places. You're either happy, right, or you're unhappy. Most people come to us, they're unhappy. They don't like their commute. They don't like their employer. They don't like corporate politics. They don't like travel. They just don't like, corporate America. And I think corporate America has a black eye to some respects with the way that they are handling this new generation of employees and just all the politics that's creeped its way into corporate America. So that's our person. Typical investor wants to invest between 100 and 200,000 of their own liquidity. They're open to debt through the Small Business Administration, 300 to 500,000 as a level. That's your typical, client, right? 200 liquidity, 300 to 500 of debt, whatever that number is. That just seems to be the sweet spot for today's, first-time franchisee investor.
Yeah, that's interesting. You represent hundreds of brands. Of course, you've got you and your team, decades of collective experience.
Yeah.
I think you've put over 2,000 people or more into franchises. So let's talk
Easily.
about it. Yeah. So it's huge and people love working with you. The reviews are incredible. When we think about it, you think about someone that calls you and you're having that conversation, or they reach out through through online, or they see you on a dais at a conference, or they've heard about
Right.
I'm sure you get a lot of referral business as well. Do you put people into franchises, or at least, consult with them that they should be in something that they're interested in? Like there's so many different franchises. How do
Yeah.
you niche specific someone?
Yeah.
If I like cars, are you trying to put me into a car franchise? If I like food, are you trying to put me into a restaurant franchise? How do you figure out what to put people into?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, what you're passionate about helps. Not necessarily that it can make money. You're a marine biologist. You love, there's like no money in the profession, right? So you look at certain things and say, okay, we have to balance your passion, but we also need to balance it with your income needs and your lifestyle that you're acclimated to and the investment objective. It's like, look, I want to do this and I want to create a legacy. I really like this industry, but I want to create wealth and own 10 locations. So we need to be realistic as to, what we put you in. So if someone comes to us, we immediately want to identify background, skill sets, things you're passionate about, right? Just get it on paper. It's like, all right, this person loves pets and animals, like has 3 dogs, 2 cats, right? So clearly there's an affinity to pets and animals. This person was a school teacher, or this person is highly intellectual. They would love the Kumons, the Mathnasiums, the Sylvan Learning Centers, the coding franchises. So yes, we do look at that. But what we tend to do is to show people this is what's trending. Do these trends align with things that you're interested in? And what's trending would be, let's say, anything involving the use of a tool. So think about all the businesses that require a tool, whether it's painting, window cleaning, pressure washing, junk removal. Like, just think about all these different home services, from roofing, siding, basement, waterproofing, demolition work. Anything involving home services is a phenomenal market and trending beautifully. And the reason is simple. We have shit on the trades in America for the last 20 years minimum. Like, literally. We told everyone, do not go to trade school, go to college. Like, every parent is guilty of this. Their kid wanted to become a plumber and they said, no, go to college, even if you do gender studies, which you're never going to be able to monetize, right? Just silly things like that. Political sciences degrees. Now these kids have 150 grand in debt and they can't monetize their degree, versus a journeyman, a plumber, making $250 a year now. So you think about what happened. That pendulum will swing, but right now the opportunity is in small business ownership. You don't need to be a plumber to own a plumbing franchise. You don't need to be a roofer. These are factual statements. There is no brand out there that is going to say you need to do what you're purchasing. You and I could own an urgent care center right now. You and I can't speak to patients, but you and I can own a $2 to $4 million urgent care center anywhere in America.
Yeah,
Fact.
I love that. I do like that home services industry, like you mentioned, of course. And coming from you, people watching the show, you need to think about it and reach out, of course, to Cliff and his team because there's just so much under the hood that you have to unpack. And one thing I think about, and you just mentioned it, am I buying a business? In other words, when I think about this as the franchisee, do I think about the franchise running without me, or am I saying to myself,
Mm.
I need to be there every single day and grind it out? Because it seems like if you look at it from that perspective, you're really buying a job, not a business. Maybe you can unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, we actually talk about that in the book. There are camps of thought and people. There are people who come to us and say, Cliff, all I want to do is replace my $100,000 worth of income. I don't want any employees. We call that guy Chuck in a truck, if you will. It's like just a guy that's doing services, that's making a living. He doesn't want any employees. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's a place for everyone. And then there's some that will come to us and say, the wealth builder. It's like, I want to get involved in a business that does not rely on my day-to-day involvement, and I want to scale it in my community, 3 to 5 locations. I want to do EBITDA of at least 1 million, maybe 2 million. Everyone has a different reason. So the answer is, it's up to you, Andy. What do you want? Why are you here? What are your investment objectives? And then we will align you with brands that can realistically execute that plan. So if you said, nope, I'm very comfortable in my world. I don't need to be a gajillionaire, right? I don't need to do all these things. I don't need to scale some large business. I just want to be happy. I want to be comfortable. I want to be in control of my schedule. I don't want to be reporting to someone half my age at corporate America that knows half of what I like. This happens. These are my conversations all day, right? All day, every day is someone disenfranchised, with corporate America that wants to go out on their own. They're really tired of creating wealth for other people. So it's a great question. A lot of people don't put enough thought into that. And a lot of people feel that if I buy a business, I'm self-employed. And the wake-up call is, no, you're not. Because I walk into businesses every day and their owners are behind the counter making sandwiches, taping boxes at the UPS store. You are not an entrepreneur. You bought yourself a job. That's all you did. And I don't like that personally. So I try and educate our clients into building profitable, scalable businesses that do not require your day-to-day involvement. That's a business.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Of course, that reminds me of Sullivan's book, 10X is easier than 2X. One thing that you're very passionate about, and I love this, is that people, when they think about coming to you and they think about getting in the franchise business, maybe they get a little emotional. Maybe they get a little sort of crazy. I love cars. I want to do a car franchise. But you're able to sort of step back, remove the emotion in the decision making, and use data and really use objective data to help these clients get to where they want to go from point A to Z. I think you talk about this in the book, but you say something really interesting is that the right brand often reveals itself through numbers, not narratives. I love that
That's
so
right.
much. Let's unpack that a little bit. That's
That's right.
great.
I was a former investment banker, and Warren Buffett said to be successful, you need a sound conceptual framework for making decisions and the ability to keep emotions from corrupting that framework. Right. So you're right. A lot of people make emotional and illogical, irrational decisions. We try and just use numbers, math, go back to their goals, keep reminding them of their goals, their objectives, what they're trying to do. They said they didn't want a business with too many complexities. So yeah, people tend to come in, they have the shotgun approach. They're going to own all these different businesses. Those businesses don't align. You said you wanted to go to soccer games and dance recitals. Yes, I did. You said you wanted to be more present in your marriage. You want to be more present as a parent. Yes, I did. Then why are you looking at a restaurant? Like, why are you down that path? that path equals marital issues. It equals you're working on weekends and holidays. It equals prepping at 9 a.m., coming home at 11 p.m. I don't understand like why you would even consider a business like that. And that's really what we do. We just keep bringing the client back to discipline. Discipline's everything. It is an underrated word if you really think about it. And this is why most people are not wealthy. They lacked discipline. They buy high, they sell low. They buy something, they hear one bit of bad news, they unload it. Like they're just constantly being whipsawed around and saying, no, the market doesn't work. I lose money there. I lose money here. Crypto sucks. Art, everything sucks to them. And the reality is the investor sucks. The investor lacks discipline. They lack some structure. We have a 6-step process, 6 steps that walks the client through the franchise due diligence process to, in the end, hopefully get to a yes or a no. I don't expect a yes. I tell every client, I do not expect you to buy a franchise. They're shocked when I say that. They're like, you don't? I said, I do not expect you to buy a franchise. I don't. Most people will never own a business. Most people will never be wealthy. Most people will never live the life that they envision for themselves. I have no expectation of you buying a business. All I expect you to do is be professional, engage in our 6-step process, and see where this takes you. Most people will be talked out of it. They don't have the intestinal fortitude to do it. They don't have the right mindset to do it. They don't have the risk tolerance to do it, right? They don't have the ability to manage others, hold people accountable. They're not motivated. They're not self-driven. They're not a lot of things. And we'll tell them, this is not a fit for you. Your chances of losing 3, 4, 500 grand are very high. And I don't want that on my watch. And I talk people out of things every day. And I'm known for that. It's in our book too. We are known. People will call us up. They're like, I want to buy this. Don't do it. They're like, wow, really? Well, that's because you want me to buy something else. I'm like, no, that business, I'll tell you why I wouldn't do that. People come back to me a year or two later and are like, look, man, you don't remember me. You tried to help me. I thought you were an asshole trying to make me buy something else, and I lost 300, 400 grand. I should have listened to you. You were spot on about the leadership of that team. Here's an example, Andy. I did it. I've been telling people the last 5, 6 years, stay away from Dickey's Barbecue. Everyone was shocked. All right, I did it. And people listening can see it. I did a video on why you should not buy Dickey's Barbecue. 85,000 views on YouTube. Right? It's like, don't do it. So yes, we spend a lot of our time trying to educate people on what brands we don't like, what brands we're hearing rumblings about legal issues, what brands have a high failure rate, what brands are not supporting their franchisees, like, what brands just can't make money. Great concept, right? But you just can't make a good profit on that business. This is what food is struggling with right now. Everyone wants to buy food. Food is struggling with profitability right now. There's single-digit net margins in food, right? I'm not getting out of bed for single-digit net. It's not happening. 20 to 30% net is my window. I have no interest in businesses that cannot achieve a 20, 30% net on an annualized basis. I have no interest in that.
Yeah, I love
So this is the type of stuff we're sharing, thought-provoking, simple things. Do you want to work inside of a home or outside the home? And they're like, wow, like a simple question. What's the difference? Do you know the complexities of working inside someone's house versus working outside their house? Mrs. Smith's not home. She doesn't care. Go ahead. Do your pest control. I'm not home. Versus I'm running errands. I'm late. I dropped my kid off at school. I'm sitting in car line. And you have a van sitting in the driveway waiting for the home. So there are complexities to working interior, exterior. There's complexities doing commercial versus residential, right? There's complexities to brick and mortar businesses versus non-brick and mortar businesses. Labor model complexities, cost of good. There's all sorts of things that we unpack, right? As you say, for the investor. And they're like, this was amazing. You're literally opening up my mind. There's benefits to, do you want to be in a monthly membership model, or do you want to be a business that's always hunting and killing for the next client? It's like, wow, I never thought of that. Gym business, monthly recurring revenue. Hair cutting, built-in recurring revenue, right? Then there's painting. You got to constantly hunt and kill and go get that next client to paint their house, and you're constantly have that sales machine going. So we just really get with a client, share a lot of business experience, decades of business acumen to try and get them to understand. My favorite quote is, once your mind is expanded by new ideas, it never goes back to its original shape. And that's what we're doing with our clients. We're just constantly thought provoking them and guiding them.
Yeah, I
Long
love
answer,
it. I
but
love it,
thank you.
Cliff. Of course, that's a great answer. And of course, we know private equity firms are looking for these types of companies that have that repeatable income every single month, whether you're, like you said, going out and doing lawns or, that you go out and you take the weeds out every single month. That's something that's very interesting for investors. Now,
Exactly.
let's talk about the book because, of course, we're going to put pictures of the book up throughout the interview. Uh, it's coming out very soon. If you're watching this interview after the time the book comes out, it's available on Amazon, or just reach out to Cliff directly. I'm sure he'll give you the right ideas behind the book. But you wrote this book. You have a co-author, Justin Guevara. It's really just like you're talking about here, the
Yeah.
unfiltered truth about franchising. So I'm kind of curious about the book. When you started your career and you learned everything under the sun about franchising, and of course, we got some of your unfiltered truth here, Cliff, you're no BS kind of a guy. Did you say to yourself when writing the book, we're just going to throw it all out there? We're going to
Yeah.
give everything we can in a no BS style so that entrepreneurs reading this book, they'll be able to take action whether they work with us or not, but they're going to understand the high level risks and rewards about franchising. What was the big idea behind the brand, a guide for entrepreneurs, and you call it to fearless franchising, and
That's
I
right.
love that.
That's right. So the book title, as you can tell, I have not pitched one brand on this show. I did not, right? I represent 600 brands. I don't come on here and tell you, Andy, your audience, you need to buy this particular franchise by name. I don't do that because I believe that prognosis before diagnosis is malpractice. You don't even know me. You don't even know one of my listeners, and you're already telling us what we need to buy. Like, cut the video, get this guy out of your life, run for the high hills, because we call it commission breath. All he has is commission breath. He wants you to buy something and he wants to get paid and move on. That is not what we do. That's what my industry does. And it's one of the reasons why we wrote this book. The book is supposed to open up their mind to new ideas, a different perspective of evaluating a brand. The book addresses the stages that you go through. One of the and fear, as you just mentioned, right? The Entrepreneur's Guide to Fearless Franchising. Fear is one of the least discussed items, right? Issues that is overwhelming in your life, if you think about it. So nobody talks about it, but it will largely influence every area of your life for the remainder of your life, which is just crazy. Everyone talks about strategy. They talk about hiring. They talk about 10Xing. No one ever really talks about fear and that your brain is wired for survival, not for success. And it's one of the reasons why people are never really successful. The brain's just not wired for that. You have to be a different kind of person and a different kind of mindset to just constantly go after risk and achieving reward. So yes, there's a huge section. No, by the way, no book addresses fear in the way we did in chapter 14. It really gets into why you're feeling what you're feeling, how to overcome some of those feelings, right? That it's biological, not logical. Fear has killed more deals than failure ever has, and it just goes into all these things about critical thinking, right? And loss aversion and all these psychological things that go on in our life that nobody teaches and nobody talks about. So we did it in the book in chapter 14. We touch on it throughout, and we share our own stories about writing checks and the own fears that we had and how we overcame those fears and how we use them as motivators. So the book is about discipline, our 6-step process. The book addresses who comes to us, displaced executives, IT people losing their jobs to AI. It goes through like a laundry list of people that are speaking to us on a daily basis. It goes into some of our deals, how we bought them, how we exited them. It goes into how to retain talent. Another thing nobody talks about. Everyone just talks about hire managers and incentivize them. If you really think about it, Andy, if you think about a book written about things or advice that you're given, fear, it's an acronym. You got to face everything and rise. Oh, thank you. Very helpful. That's all just horseshit. I'm sorry. Like, none of this helps anybody. right? It's like, oh, I'm having difficulty hiring managers and retaining them. You got to treat them right. You got to create a good culture. You got to pay them good. None of that's helpful. None of that is an actual blueprint for how you identify talent, how you retain talent, how you draft legal documents, how you incentivize them with equity or profit sharing partner, how you implement clawback provisions, how you get a manager to not go on vacation. We've had it. We had a manager go to Vietnam it was supposed to be a week. He went for a month. He wanted to let us know how important he was, right? It's like, man. So basically, you abandon his post, reach your contract, you lose all your equity, right? We have clawback provisions. No one talks about this stuff, right? Only at a high level, like a PE firm, do they get into the granularity of how to draft a legal document and do these things. Here's another one. Be careful with your lease. You got to find a good location. That's not helpful. We show the technology. I don't know if you've ever heard of a technology called Placer. Right? They're basically tracking cell phones all across the United States. They could tell you, Andy, to the right of a decimal point, how many cell phones pulled into the strip mall around the corner from your house every day, week, month. They could tell you everything. Data, data, data. And we show people in this book all these things. We have 23 risk mitigation strategies when you're negotiating a commercial lease. Nobody talks about how to negotiate a commercial lease. Nobody talks about force majeure. Nobody talks about kick-out clauses. No one talks about personal guarantee risk. No one discusses good guy clauses. No one discusses any of this stuff. Nobody discusses the fact that the landlord told you that the space was 2,000 square feet, but my contractor measured 1,800. You're paying an extra 200 square feet a month for nothing, right? So all this stuff, right? Trust but verify. Super helpful to a new entrepreneur, keeping them out of trouble, protecting their home, protecting their personal guaranteed assets. There's a lot. We're very proud of this book. Okay. We put this as decades of business experience in here. And I hope that people really benefit from it. And if we could change some people's lives and help them, manage the downside risks of being an entrepreneur, or the book just gave them the confidence that, you know what, I'm taking this leap. I feel armed with enough information to make good decisions. And I'm going to take this leap.
Yeah, that's great, Cliff, from what you're saying. I mean, obviously it's not just entrepreneurs looking into the franchise industry. It's any entrepreneur should be reading this book based on 100%. The value that you provide. I mean, that's unbelievable. You don't hear that type of stepping stone process very often. Like you mentioned, a lot of generalized sort of offers and ideas in books, but not something so specific. I mean, this whole idea, that you mentioned regarding even the space size and measuring out the space is something nobody thinks about except for you and your team. Now, I know I've kept you over, but I want to talk about team. We spoke about it a little bit. When you look at the brands that you represent, how important is the team to your decision to bring them on and sort of represent them in your process?
Yeah, so we represent over 600 brands across probably 70 different industries. We meet brands regularly. Matter of fact, I'm meeting with you on the 6th of October. I just came from a conference where we meet with the executive team. We meet with the brands. We speed date, basically. So you speed dating with the brands. You're also spending nights and dinners and doing excursions and team building and relationship building. But we really get to know the executive teams, the founders, right? One of the things that Justin and I implemented was what we called a launch call. So if we were interested in a brand, we would have that brand's executive team present for about an hour their entire concept to us. It gave us a really good handle on their style, the way they sell, the way they evaluate candidates, the way they support their franchisees, right? That we could obviously, with the FDD, now that we have the FDD, we could look at the failure rate, we could look at the earnings claim, right? All of this is in writing. We could look at their financials, right? Their financials are audited and fully disclosed. I'm talking about their financials, right? So it's like, man, you're asking people to invest $500,000 in your business. You don't even have $500,000 in assets, right? So those are brands that we just have no interest in. And that's why we represent 600 brands out of the 4,000 brands that exist in this country. So leadership team's incredibly important to us. Has anyone filed for bankruptcy? What are the legal issues with that team? We're looking at all of those things. And then when we have a client, Andy, now we're educating them on how do you read an FDD? How do you read a 300-page legal document? We teach them how to get the vitals out of that document very quickly. As I said, bankruptcies, go here. Leadership team, go there. Lawsuits, go here. Failure rate, growth of the system, go over here. We teach them item 1 through item 23. Every FDD is the same. They're all item 1 through item 23, whether you're looking at McDonald's or a brand with one location. It's all regulated by the FTC. So leadership is incredibly important. Culture and fit is incredibly important. And we look at that before we recommend a brand.
I love it. Before I let you go, and again, thank you for spending a little extra time with us today. I know I didn't schedule it with you, so I'm indulging myself in your time. And again, thank you for getting the time to come on the show prior to what we were trying to get, because I just wanted to get this on so quickly, because what's happening here in the franchise industry is very interesting, and you're a leader, and I wanted to get this out to the public. So thanks again for rearranging your schedule to come on earlier than we were expecting.
My
Let's
pleasure.
give back to the entrepreneurs a little bit. I mean, I know you have some great ideas, and of course, in the book and with your partner and your team, you talk to entrepreneurs all day long. But for the struggling entrepreneurs out there, the ones that are maybe having a tough time, let's see if we can give back a little bit to the entrepreneur community. Maybe you could mention some thoughts or ideas coming from you about what it takes to get through a tough time in business, how to keep on pushing, how to keep on, taking that next step, because some entrepreneurs, like you mentioned, it's not for everybody. And sometimes people don't take that last step when they should have. And that was the last step they needed to get to where they were going.
It's true. It's you mentioned this. I have seen I have seen over the years so many people give up right before the finish line. Now they don't know it. They don't know that the finish line is 10, 15, 20 feet in front of them, and they give up. Mindset is incredibly powerful. The problem with critical thinking, um, it, people in 4K will loop only disaster outcomes. That's really what most people do, right? They're just constantly on a loop, like Steven Spielberg movies, all the reasons they're going to fail, all the things that they're going to lose, all the negativity. You must intersperse the positivity. I'm going to win. You have to put the positive in there on that doom scrolling loop that's in your head about failure, 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 because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you think about, you bring about. So you got to get your head on straight, right? Thoughts become things. If you're obsessing over failure and all the problems in your life and your business, all you're doing is attracting more negativity. So you've got to get that mindset straightened out. Next, you got to align yourself and surround yourself with positive people. Maybe it's a growth group. Maybe, and with all the virtual, you could join a growth group, 7 states away. So you could get involved in a group where they just obsess over winning and growing and building and social media and SEO and SEM and hiring and just changing your trajectory if you're in a bad spot. Securing loans, very important. If you have a loan, here's an example. It's funny that you bring this up. I had a conversation the other day with a guy that's struggling. I said, "Did you call your landlord?" "No." "Why?" "Did you call the SBA?" "No." "Why?" "Call both of them, renegotiate your lease, and tell the SBA you're struggling, renegotiate that loan. Maybe go to interest only for several months." He was blown away. He texted me back and he goes, "You are not going to believe this." Like, they're both open to having a conversation with me. Yeah, you're in arrears on rent. You're going to fail. The landlord sees it. So let's renegotiate that or help him out a little bit. And the SBA wants to get paid, so they'll certainly restructure loan terms. Right. So there's things that you could do if you're struggling with lines of credit, speaking to your creditors, speaking to your vendors. It breaks my heart when I see a business fail. So I do like to go out of my way to give some advice to people. But you're not fixing anything if this isn't right. You got to get the mindset right. The mindset will largely determine your outcome in life and every facet of life, from the smallest things to the biggest issues. Mindset is everything. You got to get that straight.
I love it. I already know I'm going to bring you back on the show. We're going to do a full hour. I'm going to call it Mindset with Cliff. I mean, we really need to get into that. That's great. What you're doing at Franocity is phenomenal. What a great interview. And again, you're not only just a consultant, but I can see also you enjoy mentoring and making sure that people move down the right path in the right way. That's called paying it forward. And I know you're a big believer in that as well. You give back to the
100%.
community. You're involved with charitable contributions. You're a big believer in making the world filled with light. So Cliff, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Entrepreneur Spotlight Show today. And we're going to have you back on very, very soon.
Thanks, Andy.